Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I am your host, Catryn Becker. In this show, we love to interview people from all different walks of life, all different industries, professions, you name it, because we want to learn what they have learned in their careers that have brought them so much success and happiness. And we love to say that while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. So we want to learn what they've learned so we can either avoid their mistakes completely or we can fail faster. Today, my guest is really interesting character. I know you're going to really love him. And the reason I say the word character is because most people know him by his alternate personality, which is that of Cowboy Jack. His real name is John Havard, and he is the education entertainment genius that's really changing the way that we are marketing our content online to kids. I have kids. I get it. There's a lot of stuff out there that I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you watching? So I'm so grateful for John, aka Cowboy Jack, and he and his wife are putting together amazing content on there for families like mine and like yours. So John, Jack, what do I call you? Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Catryn. You can just call me John or call me Jack, whichever's easier for you. It doesn't bother me either way. I like both names. So
I might go back and forth. You never know.
I'm good with that. I actually, Jack is not a bad name. It's a lot less common than John.
Which is kind of surprising, actually. You think like there's so many different like Jacksons and all this stuff, but you don't hear Jack very often.
That's very true. It's a classic, but it's dying out on us.
So a little bit of the backstory of how you became a YouTuber with millions of views, hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands subscribers, I think.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
growing. By the time this podcast released, who knows, maybe you'll cross the 100,000 line. This is not your normal profession.
No, ma'am, not at all. It's very, in fact, very different from my day job. My day job, I work in the industrial sector, selling engineered products all across the United States.
So do the people you work with know about your alter ego?
Oh, I had to tell them. So this started during the pandemic, and it was created out of a need by me and my personal family, just to have. Sorry, something happened. Oh, and then here I am messing up the flow. So do you want to ask me that again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good. I should have warned you. Okay, let me go back to the alter ego part. Okay. So with these people at work, do they know about your alter ego?
Oh, they all know about it and love it now. When I first told them about it, of course, they thought I was a little bit off my rocker. But the fact of the matter is, Cowboy Jack was born, during the pandemic out of a necessary need from my own personal family. I have a now 5.5-year-old son, and I'm a business development manager covering the entire country. So when the pandemic hit, my wings were clipped. I was staying at home versus traveling 50 to 70% of the time. And I just couldn't find the kind of content I wanted my son to be watching. I grew up on Mr. Rogers, Captain Kangaroo, all these great adults that were teaching us things in a fun way, but it was still very, very educational, and it kept our attention even when using their normal adult speaking voice. And so, I mean, truth be told, I kept talking about it and telling my wife how I didn't really care for what he was watching, and she cared too, but it wasn't really bugging her as much. I just kept talking about it and talking about it. And eventually she was like, if you care so much, make your own show. And so we had no idea what we were doing. She recorded me on a GoPro at the pond in our neighborhood, and learned how to edit on YouTube and all these things, put it together. My son loved it, but I was pretty convinced my son loved it because I'm dad. I didn't think it was something that would resonate with other kids. And so then when we showed it to our friends' kids, I still thought, they like it because it's Mr. John and all these things. But she finally convinced me to put it online. And I was really nervous about that because here I am. I work in a pretty rough and gruff man's world, selling industrial engineered products to chemical plants and food processing and rail and transit, all these heavy industries. And I was like, man, they're gonna laugh at me really, really hard. So I kind of gathered them all together and said, look, I want y'all to know this. This is what I'm doing. And they laughed for 10 minutes, 15, 30, 45 minutes straight. But once they were done, they all became subscribers and started showing their kids. And now all their kids think it's cool because they know Cowboy Jack. So
Yeah, like knowing a celebrity. I know, my son's 11, and there was definitely a phase of his life. It might still exist. You might just not tell me anymore, where he's like, Mom, I want to be a YouTuber.
there's so many kids that aspire to be that nowadays. It's different. I mean, we have what we call the creator economy, which is something that a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, such as myself, had no idea what that meant. If you were going to be famous, you had to get on either network TV or in a Hollywood movie. And
Right.
now that's just not the case. It's completely different.
So I've got a question about, you still are you, but yet now you have the
Mhm.
Cowboy Jack name to go with it. So your son obviously knew it was you. It's not like you were dressed up in makeup and anything. What was kind of the thought process in even recording it at all and not just taking your son to the pond?
So we needed something. I mean, honestly, we just needed something on demand, with the purpose of being when the pandemic first hit. I was immediately at home, working from home, 24. All of my workday. My wife was immediately working from home, all of her workday, and my son's school was closed. And so,
Right.
when we were doing Zoom meetings or Skype calls or Microsoft Teams meetings, we needed like 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour where we could turn something on for him and entertain him to where we felt like he was actually getting something out of it versus just pointless screen time where you're not really exercising your brain or learning new things or anything. So I wanted it on demand, like video format where, and of course, I mean, we take our kids everywhere that we film. Our kids have been with us on. I mean, I can't say that everywhere because we have filmed a few places, like with Memorial Hermann Life Flight, up at the top of the
Oh,
medical
wow.
center in downtown Houston. I obviously can't take my kids on the helipad, but anywhere that's actually a fun place for kids to go, we've gone there first, and then I make sure it's cool for my kids before I film my show there. Is kind of the way I take it. But I needed that content to be on demand for my own personal use. And then come to find out through that process, we just really enjoy the process of it. I mean, it's hilarious. I mess up a lot. And my wife is pretty much cracking up my wife is my videographer and my editor and my idea man. So the whole time she's dying laughing. We're having it's become like our little escape away from home life actually, because we'll get a babysitter and go film two or three things on a Saturday, and that's like our as weird
It's
as
your
it sounds.
date.
Yeah, it's a strange hobby to have in order to escape from your kids for just a little bit, but at the same time, like it brings us a lot of joy. So
Well, I'm sure most parents can relate to going on a date and you spend half the time talking about the kids anyway. So I guess it
very
kind of
true.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Well, one of the things that has, with the clients I work with the guests that I've had on, it's something that I really see people struggling with a lot is the inertia of not knowing what to do next. Being like, I need to practice, I need to have it perfect. I can't put it out there until I know what I'm doing. So there's this really big overarching fear that many people have of looking silly or looking stupid or not knowing what they're doing. I mean, you're being silly and you didn't know what you were doing, but you still just jumped and went. Do you think it would be different if you had the intention that this was going to become what it is today?
Maybe, because I do think that if I knew that it was going to become what it has become, I probably would have spent so much time preparing that I may have never actually jumped.
Hmm.
One of the things that I've learned through this whole process is it doesn't, say you're going to start a podcast or say you're going to start, a YouTube channel or, anything. Every day that you don't go for it, you're losing time. And look at anyone's early work in any category of life. I don't care if you're a singer, a movie star, a guitar player, or an accountant. Like, look back at your early work, the first things that you did. They're all terrible and an embarrassment compared to where you are today. But without that embarrassment, you would have never gotten to where you are now. And that's a big lesson, a takeaway from Cowboy Jack that I live in my personal life now. If I get an idea that I want to go do something, Now I just go for it. And I know, I'm likely going to crash and burn a couple of times, but in the end, I'll get there because I found out I messed up, but I had fun doing it. I want to try it again.
No, and that's such a good message for kids. Something that I've talked about with other guests on here that have been in the education space is around the idea of we don't give our kids enough opportunities to fail in a safe place. School is set up so stringently of, having to get the A's, getting good grades, putting so much emphasis on that and not so much in the learning process and going back and reviewing failures and saying, okay, this is where we, can grow and expand. So I think it's something that's really powerful, especially in today where there's so much perfectionism and the negative side of perfectionism.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's almost like perfection is expected on the first try, and there's not very many places in life where that's an actual reality. It's just something that we've created in our own headspace that we need to get rid of. As parents, as business people, as leaders in our community, as spouses. You can't expect anyone to knock anything out of the park the first time. I mean, people will do it, but that's the exception, not the rule. And I think we need to celebrate failure as much. I mean, not celebrate it, but recognize,
Yeah.
shortcomings. Yeah, because if you don't recognize those shortcomings, you never improve. And, the whole goal of life is to constantly be improving and expanding and growing. And if we don't have those failures, how do you grow? I mean, I've trying to think of a good example from specifically my show for kids is like, you know, we got an opportunity to film with a beekeeper very early on in our show. And to me, that was amazing. I'm terrified of bees. I'm allergic to bees, but they reassured us we would have gear and everything. And my wife hates bees and she's my camera crew. But it was an amazing, like once in a lifetime style thing. And okay, we're going. So we show up that day to film. We've got rinky dink equipment. We don't really have anything impressive to tell these people. We just know we want to film their bees. And so they spend an awful amount of time showing us the bees and making sure we have incredible content, which we do. When we get home, we go to watch the video, and the video imagery is as good as it could be on the devices we had at the time. But there is absolutely no audio to be found anywhere because we had no microphones, and we didn't even realize. We were so excited and in the moment, we didn't even realize the microphones weren't functioning when we were recording. So, I mean, that taught us, was it a failure? Absolutely. But the lesson we learned that we will never, ever, ever forget is you double, triple, and quadruple check your audio and visual equipment before you get into something. So lesson learned. And they did let us come back and do it again. But I also had to bribe my wife to get back into a bee suit and go back into the bees a second time.
Well, hopefully you weren't doing that in Texas in August.
It was Texas in June, so
that's just slightly better.
Yeah, not much. It was still pretty brutal.
Yeah. Well, I love that, having those moments and being able to, because it's so applicable to anything in business, right? Where you mess up in one thing. And I'm kind of the mindset that everyone gets one chance to learn and grow from their mistakes because we're all people. But when you keep making the same mistake over and over again, it's like, okay, we gotta do something a little bit different. But
yeah,
it takes time to put these together. You have to come up with the idea, then you have to come up with, okay, you have an idea to go somewhere. You got to contact the people, right? If it's, a connection, set all that up. On a typical episode, and let's do more in like the episodes you're creating now, not so much in the early days. What kind of does that time frame look like? What is that process for you?
From conception to publication?
Sure.
So we will either, we'll come up with an idea of like, say, like right now we're working on, I don't want to give it away, but it's a big piece of equipment that a lot of kids are interested in, but they don't get to interact with it hardly ever. Maybe at a Touch a Truck event, but it's highly unlikely in this part of the world where I live that they ever actually get to get up close and personal with one. So we've been trying to figure out how we could film with this particular large piece of equipment and finding a company that would let us do that and all those things. And so we just started networking and finally found someone who owns one of these pieces of equipment and said we could film with them. So now we're planning on going out and shooting some things with him I believe it's next weekend. And we don't script anything. That's what's unique about our show, is that we don't script anything. We try to make it an adventure where we're learning the entire time. But if I did have a script, we work on the script and get that to them. But we just show up, we have a really good educational, fun time with this individual and their piece of equipment, learn as much as we can about it. And then we come home, my wife will take that footage and piece it together into what we call the raw cuts, which were all the little clips are put together, and she's cut out all the mess ups I've made and all the times we just stop to laugh or, take a deep breath because I keep saying something wrong over and over and over again. And then once she gets it to that, then I'll take a look at it and watch it all the way through in its entirety and make sure I like everything. And then she goes back with the final cut and puts in all the words and animations and fun little, laughing faces that pop through and everything like that to make it fun. And then we just upload it to all of our platforms. And nowadays it's gotten more complicated because of course our main source of viewership comes from YouTube and YouTube Kids, but we're also distributed on Amazon Prime, Tubi, Yippee TV, Kadoodle TV, the Odyssey, Rumble, all of them. So it seems like it's probably the longest, most time consuming step of the process isn't even filming, it's the uploading it onto these platforms.
Wow. Did you reach out to those other like Tubi or whatever to get on there, or did they come to you?
It's a mix. It's really a healthy mix of all of them. I think, like Tubi had shown some interest early on, but our production quality wasn't there. And so, and like Amazon Prime, that one, basically all of the platforms that we're adding now is through an agency that helps us with that just because of time consumption. It's not that an individual doesn't have the means to make it happen on your own, but if you can find someone who can shortcut all of the legwork for you and really streamline it without impacting significantly your bottom line or anything, those are great moves to make. And I think all entrepreneurs and business people recognize that at some point, is like, it's not that you can't do everything, but if you outsource some of these tasks, you become, stick to what you're really good at and don't try to learn every new skill out there. If there's already an expert in that field, use them and make your life easier so that you can focus on what you're good at. So
absolutely. I love the zone of genius.
It's not, I wish I could claim some of this as mine. I mean, some of these we learned by trial and error and big mistakes, but a lot of things, like it's funny in the business world, in my day job, it's a very competitive marketplace, right? So we would never converse with our fellow, competition. We would never, talk about strategy or game plan or how we go to market or anything with those guys. Not only would it be violating a few laws, but it also just would be bad business for us. It would come back to bite us. So we keep all those secrets really close to vest. In the creator industry, I mean, I've found so many people that are just so willing to help you, like on the mega scale. Like I've met some of my children's personal heroes, really great family shows from YouTube that I've not only, exchanged emails and phone calls with, but also connected with in person. And it's different because it's a business, and in a sense there's competition, but not really, because there's more than enough audience to go around, and there's no reason why their audience wouldn't also be my audience if it entertains them. Everybody has different interests, so it's not like we're not trying to steal business from one another in any way. So there's very little competition aspect to it, which is nice.
Which is really, really nice because it can be collaborative and
Yeah,
sharing like,
absolutely.
hey, I tried this worked, this didn't, what's your experience been? I love being in that kind of atmosphere versus the more cutthroat competition.
Oh, and it's hard to flip the switch. I have a really, really good friend who makes an incredible show for kids, and we pretty much started at the same time, connected very early on, and the whole time we kind of had been neck and neck with each other. And then all of a sudden, he just started going bonkers. And when I say bonkers, I mean he's probably in the top 15 nowadays. And if I said his name, everybody would know him. And you have to like, it's like because of my day job and being a very competitive person on a personal level, I'm like, oh man, I got to figure out how to catch up to this guy. But in reality, I am soaking in his glory because I know there will become a point where that same effect happens to me. And also, he can tell me the secrets from the top while I'm still down here in the middle space, you know?
Right?
So we celebrate each other's victories rather than get jealous, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Thinking in the creative space, did you ever think of yourself as creative? You're working in a very competitive, industrial, testosterone soaked environment, like where there's not a whole lot of room for creativity. And like, did you grow up thinking you were a creative person?
Oh, well, I did. I grew up in a pretty creative household. My mom was a bit of a folk singer back in the day. And so she, taught us guitar at a young age. My dad is, it's hilarious to me. So my father is a accountant by trade. He went to college for accounting, worked really hard to get that degree and worked in accounting firms for a number of years, but the creative streak in him couldn't stop him. He now has 3 patents on downhole production equipment in the oil field. And that's, he invents them, gets them patented, and manufactures and ships them all himself. And
Wow.
he just had a big birthday. He was born in 1937, so he's mid 80s now, and still goes to work every day. And I mean, I just talked to him the other night. And he said, "I got an idea for a new product." So I come from a family of creative and serial entrepreneurial folks, and I've always had that in me.
That is fascinating because so many of the entrepreneurs that I've had on this show, I love to find out what was their upbringing. Because for me, my parents both had 9 to 5 jobs.
Mhm.
The parents before them, my grandmothers didn't work, but my grandfathers had 9 to 5 jobs. So a lot of like history in my genetic, background of being this 9 to 5 kind of thing. So it never even occurred to me to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Like
but
it didn't even occur to me at all. And here I am living this life now. So I love hearing people who've had the kind of entrepreneurial background. And then you did end up at the 9 to 5, but now you're also being an entrepreneur. Now you're walking, both lines.
yeah, and it's a dangerous thing because once you get bit by this bug, you can't ever drop it. I hate to tell you that, but
So
at the
true.
same time, even if you're from generations of 9 to 5, and that's everybody's aspiration for you to do that 9 to 5. It doesn't mean you can't do other things. And by doing other things, you may find something you're really, really passionate about and something that really, wakes you up in the morning and says, I mean, not every, I'm blessed with a job that I wake up in the morning and I'm proud of what I do. I'm good at what I do. I enjoy it, all those things. I can't really ask for a better professional career. But this enriches me in a completely different way. And it's just become such a passion for us.
Mm. So you've been doing this now for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any concern or has there ever been any moments where you are just plumb out of ideas of what to do for the next video, the next concept?
Did you bug my house? No, we're constantly, we do it ebbs and flows. Like a lot of times because of that, we get, around across all networks and everything, we get, between 8 and 10 million views a month. So we do get a lot of companies and places reaching out to us to see if we'd like to film with them, or hey, I have this idea and things. But that seems to come in big waves, and sometimes we forget, we have this huge wave of all these places offering, hey, do you want to come in and film? And we're like, man, that looks awesome, yes. And so we play that game for 3 or 4 months, and then it's like we hit a lull and we don't have any content. We're like, man, what do we do? What do we do? And so we have to remind ourselves that before we were at this 8 to 10 million views a month level, we were doing all the legwork ourselves. We were researching and finding things, paying more attention to our kids' interest and what type of videos they watch and getting ideas from that, and asking them what the hottest, newest trend is. And so like right now, we were recently in a ditch and kind of struggling to put out we put out one new up to 30-minute episode a week. And we were struggling with keeping up with that pace because we just didn't know what we were going to film. And then we put our heads together, and for about a week straight, we were sitting down every spare moment we had, writing down ideas. And now we've got a backlog to film of about 14 weeks out. So I mean, it's just
Get you some breathing room.
Yeah, you roll with the punches a little bit, but you have to remind yourself always of where you started out and how you used to do things, because it's not always going to come easy, even when you're being successful.
Well, and I think that's so important. A guest that I had, he was episode 10. His name is Adam Coffey, and he is an incredible businessman who has had $2.4 billion exits out of 3 or 4 different companies. So, I mean,
Okay.
he's amazing, and he always promotes unit level economics, going down to what the base moments are of how things work. And I think it's so applicable in any kind of industry. It's not just, how you're selling something and what those unit are, but the process, the thinking model of going back to the basics, really, and going back to those foundations to find that new inspiration. And it's relevant in every single industry. When you start losing that inspiration, it's like, well, when was the last time you did feel inspired, and what was that process like? Let's go back to that and reinvigorate it from there.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I have it easier than a lot of people because in business, say you have a bad year and you're kind of down on yourself, you have to reach and find that inspiration. Like for me, whenever we get in that mode, I'll go look and see what some of my favorite personal, kids creators are doing and watch what they're producing, and I'm like, I can be that good. I just got to work at it, and then there's my inspiration.
Yeah. Well, and the great thing about kids is, mine are 11 and 9 now, and they will watch the same thing like so many times.
Oh
So
yeah.
at least the good thing is, like, you could just do the same thing over. The kids won't really notice, or they still
It's
enjoy
funny.
it.
It's funny. We've tried to recreate episodes. Like our top video ever was a visit to the dentist's office, and that was really fun for me because we were teaching kids that it's not scary to go to the dentist, that it's important for our health, and that it's not scary or in any way a frightening place to be. It can be really fun. And it was easy for me to do that because my brother is a pediatric dentist. So I filmed with him, and we were feeding off of each other's energy. We look like twins, even though we're 4 years apart. So it was just really, really fun. But I came across another dentist here in Montgomery County that's just an incredible guy. Like his story was such an inspiration to me, and I love everything about Dr. Josh, and I just really wanted to film with him. And so we went and we filmed with him. He's got a brand new office. It's a beautiful facility. I mean, I take my own kids there now, of course, and everything about it was perfect. The footage, the way we did it, everything about it was better than what I did with my brother. But the thing is, the audience just saw me and Dr. Kenny, my twin brother, who's not really my twin, and they still gravitate to that episode. I mean, the episode with Dr. Josh and myself still performed very, very well, but it's not consistently in the top 10 the way my brother's is.
I love that too, that and I in researching you ahead of time, and I heard you in a different interview mentioning that how many people who have children with sensory issues or on the spectrum, and how much that video really related to them. And I'm sure that was nowhere in your conscious awareness at all when you were
No,
filming this.
not even a little bit. That it was very, very early on when we started. I had an amazing person, Lynn from Team Awesomeism Virtual Academy, which it's an online academy to teach adults with autism soft skills, like life skills, like doing how to do the laundry, how to take care of this, do this, and just kind of it's a social network for those adults. It's a means for them to prepare themselves to get job placements, all these things. And she saw the value in how slow I talk and certain things I was doing in my show for kids. And she was like, look, I want to use it on my online academy, but we need to teach you about autism. And so I studied at the School of Autism under Lynn's direction. She taught me everything about these individuals and how, they're no different than you or I. They just have a different way of perceiving things and reacting to them. And so we're very intentional with being positive for the autism community, because it's probably one of the fastest growing segments of our population, and definitely one of the most important. So we're very intentional with everything we do for special needs, and it's incredibly, even though I didn't know it was important to me when we started, it is incredibly important to me now.
That's really good. And I have to ask, I mean, your kids are still young right now, and they probably still love that you're doing this. What's going to happen when they're like teenagers and, preteens?
Man, I don't know. I worry about that myself. Like right now. So it's funny, when I first started and up until my son graduated from daycare, he was all about Cowboy Jack. He thought Cowboy Jack was the bee's knees. He thought this was the coolest thing. My dad makes these videos. And then we hit this 2-month window when he first started kindergarten and everything. He didn't want to watch the show anymore. He didn't want to see what I was filming, which that was always a big thing for him. Like I always showed him, like, hey, remember when we went here? I just filmed an episode here. Look at these pictures we took. He's like, that's so cool, Dad, And then that kind of died off for him. I started to get really concerned about it. And then now that he's in kindergarten, 3 or 4 months in, and some of his buddies at his new school have found out that he's Cowboy Caden, who's been on a couple of my episodes, and I'm Cowboy Jack, and they see me, pick him up from time to time or drop him off in the morning. Now he thinks it's the coolest thing in the world again. And there's, he asks me every day, can I be in your episode this weekend? Can I film with you? Can I? And I try to keep, I'm not opposed to having him in the show. I just don't want him to be the workhorse or the main reason people are watching the show, because I don't feel like he's old enough to make that decision for himself yet. So I let him be in a seasonal episode from time to time and things like that. But I do really worry about when he's a teenager, kids are going to start picking on him because his dad is Cowboy Jack, and it'll go from me being really cool because I'm on TV or whatever to, look, that guy's dad is a dork because he's jumping around in cowboy boots. Look at him. I don't know how we react to that, but I think as long as I instill in my kids the ability to accept everybody for who they are and to celebrate the diversity in all of us, I think we'll be just fine.
No, I think you will, John. I think it's such a wonderful thing. And hopefully for the listeners, they're taking some inspiration from this, that, that idea that's been floating around in your head was given to you. We all have those ideas.
And I mean, it's funny that I'm sitting here talking to you about this. I literally, just wrapped up my workday talking about contract negotiations and everything, something completely different. And I switch modes into this, and it just rattles right off the tongue. And it'll come across like I'm some sort of professional, and I've been doing this for years. But the fact of the matter is, I'm learning every day as we go. What the heck are we doing? Like, it's not, I try to pretend like I know what we're doing, but I watch YouTube videos when I don't know the answer. And I feel like when you find something that you're this passionate about and that makes you this happy, it empowers you in so many different ways. I was like, I had no intention of, being this Cowboy Jack, and now here I am. And then fast forward, 2.5 years, and I have this idea. I just now this week launched a brand new channel in addition to what I already do, which is still Cowboy Jack, but it's called Cowboy Jack Shorts for Kids. And they're just short inspirational messages, like positive affirmations for kids, because I think kids need that. I think there's not enough people just telling them like, hey, you know what? It's really cool. Like the one that I released yesterday, and sorry, I'm rambling about this, but I'm passionate about it and I want to get the word out.
Share
is
it.
That we were dressed up. We were filming a Halloween episode 2 weekends ago, I believe, and that episode's going to come out, I think, next week. I don't. My wife is the scheduler, but we were there filming, and I just had this idea as we were watching all these people in costumes and everything, and I just made her stop and take a short clip of me, and this is what the basis of the new channel is that, hey, it's really fun to dress up for Halloween and you can be whoever you want to be. But you know what? It's really awesome to be yourself because you are a unique, wonderful creation. And there is absolutely nobody just like you anywhere in this big world. And so just little things like that, positive reaffirmations teach kids that, they may be different, they may look different, they may, have physical disabilities or anything like that. But at the end of the day, they were made that way for a reason and they bring great value to everyone around them.
I think it's a great message, especially, as artificial intelligence is coming into every aspect of our lives in so many different ways. All of the filters that exist for, the deep fakes. I mean, being authentic and loving yourself, that's going to be the real magic to strive for.
Yeah, I will show you with my facial expression, my level of excitement for AI. I mean, there's a lot of things about it that are going to make our lives easier as a creator, but there's also a lot of things that are scary about it that I don't know what the answer is. We'll just have to see how it goes because it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
No, it's certainly not. And we just kind of got to adapt and roll with it and remember what's real and what's important.
Yeah, maybe it means that I don't actually have to go anywhere and film something. I'll just tell Chat GPT, Cowboy Jack goes to the horse ranch, and next thing you know, there I am dancing around.
Can have like the majestic horses, jumping
Yeah.
in the pasture.
Here I am riding my unicorn to work.
Or like a whale or a dolphin or something. Cowboy Jack dives in the ocean.
We're laughing about it now, but let's talk again in a couple of years and it's going to be happening.
I know. I'll save this clip and just send it to you randomly and be like, oh my gosh, it happened.
We called it. We called it.
Well, John, this has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And it's so great to see people, really being so passionate about something that can help so many people and really, really make a big difference. And I'm grateful to you and people like you taking their time to help the children and the next generation to be the best versions of themselves. So thank you so much.
Well, I sincerely appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you, letting me have a voice. I mean, we don't get to talk about the grown-up side of kids creating, ever because we're in front of camera all the time, but it's in front of camera for kids. And I don't think I'm going to have too many little fans that tune into this, but I hope that their parents will find it and can hopefully find some inspiration to give whatever that idea is that they've been kicking around for years and been scared to jump, to just get out there and jump. Every second you sit around, you're missing an opportunity.
Yes, I love to say that the word regret stands for realizing every goal requires embracing transformation.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to write that one down. I really like that.
I'll send it to you as well. But yeah, it's one of those things where you can have a regret or you can, take that big leap and embrace that transformation because that's what's required.
Worst case scenario, you might look foolish. Look at me. I mean, I dress up like a cowboy in public.
And go talk to people.
Yeah. I mean, sure, there's times when it's embarrassing, but over anybody that looks at me funny, I can say, you know what? I'm dressed up this way because I'm making a really successful children's educational show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, please tell people where they can find your information. I'll make sure I put it in the show notes as well, but I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. I mean, you can find everything right. The easiest place to find us is just on YouTube. So you just go to YouTube and search Cowboy Jack. You'll see me in a big old hat. You can't miss me. But you can also find us on Amazon Prime, Yippee TV, Tubi, your favorite streaming platforms everywhere. And of course, I'm not cool enough to be good on Instagram. We're on there. But if you go looking for us, we're really good at Facebook. It's just Cowboy Jack on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for being here, John. And to the listeners, thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this. I tell you guys every week that I bring you the most amazing guests and I deliver. If there's something that you're curious about, maybe it's this person in your area or a profession, an industry, anything, please reach out. I'd love to find another great guest to interview for next time. See you next time. Take care.